Congratulations to Robert Chen, our new Vice President of Operations. The conference room erupted in applause as I sat frozen in my chair, watching my assistant, my 29-year-old assistant, shake hands with the CEO at the front of the room. The promotion I'd been promised, the position I'd been doing unofficially for the past 18 months while proving myself ready. Robert caught my eye across the table and had the audacity to wink. My name is Diana Hartwell. I'm 52 years old, and until approximately 90 seconds ago, I was the Senior Director of Operations at Meridian Solutions in Boston, Massachusetts. I've spent the last 14 years with this company, climbing from project coordinator to senior leadership, building systems, mentoring teams, and generating the kind of consistent results that made Meridian the industry leader it is today. The CEO, Gerald Whitmore, continued speaking. Robert brings fresh perspective and innovative thinking to this role. His ideas about streamlining our processes and modernizing our approach align perfectly with where Meridian needs to go in the next decade. Fresh perspective, innovative thinking. Code words I'd heard before. Code words that meant young, male, and willing to take credit for other people's work. Because every single innovative idea Gerald just praised, I'd developed them. I'd presented them in strategy meetings over the past year. I'd watched Robert take notes, ask clarifying questions, and apparently repackage my work as his own vision for the future. Diana, as Robert's former supervisor, I'm sure you're proud to have mentored such talent, Gerald said, gesturing toward me with that beneficent smile that made my skin crawl. You'll continue reporting to Robert, of course, providing him with the institutional knowledge he'll need to succeed in this role. The room's eyes turned to me expectantly, waiting for me to play the gracious mentor, the supportive team player, the woman who'd smile and applaud while a man half my age leapfrogged over me, using my own work as his stepping stone. I stood up slowly, gathering my leather portfolio and phone. I'm afraid I need to excuse myself. Congratulations, Robert. I walked out of the conference room with measured steps, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, I heard the awkward pause. Then Gerald's voice, resuming the celebration with forced enthusiasm. I didn't go to my office. Instead, I walked directly to the elevator, rode down to the parking garage, and sat in my car. My hands were shaking, not with sadness, but with a rage so pure it felt almost clarifying. My phone buzzed. A text from my husband, Marcus. How'd the announcement go? VP Hartwell has a nice ring to it. Taking you to dinner tonight to celebrate. I stared at the message, then scrolled up through our conversation history. Last week, when I'd mentioned my concern that Gerald kept delaying the promotion announcement, you're overthinking it. They know your value. Just be patient. 2 months ago, when I'd complained about Robert taking credit for my supply chain redesign in a client meeting, that's how offices work, Di. You're too sensitive about this stuff. As long as your boss knows it was your work, does it matter? 6 months ago, when I'd asked him to attend the company gala, where I was receiving an innovation award. Can't we skip it? Those things are so boring. And I have an early tea time Sunday. I looked at Marcus's smiling face in his contact photo, taken on our 20th anniversary cruise 3 years ago, back when I still believed we wanted the same things. Back when I thought his lack of interest in my career was just typical husband behavior, not complete disregard for the things that mattered to me. My phone rang. Gerald. I answered, keeping my voice neutral. Yes? Diana, that was unprofessional. We need you back upstairs for the transition planning meeting. I'm afraid I'm not feeling well. I'll be working from home the rest of the day. Diana. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the next 3 hours, I sat in my car in that parking garage. And I thought, really thought, without the constant noise of obligations and expectations, in the desperate need to prove myself worthy of opportunities that kept being handed to less qualified men. I thought about the last 14 years, about the projects I'd salvaged, the clients I'd retained, the teams I'd built, about watching 5 different men get promoted over me, each time being told I needed just a bit more experience, a few more wins under my belt, to work on my leadership presence. I thought about my marriage, about how Marcus's consulting firm had failed 8 years ago, and I'd worked double shifts to keep us afloat financially while he found himself, about how I'd supported his decision to go back to school for his MBA at age 48, covering all our expenses while he studied, about how, 6 months after graduating, he'd gotten a good position at a mid-size firm, and suddenly started making comments about me being too aggressive in my career ambitions, too focused on work, not present enough at home. I thought about our daughter, Lauren, who'd graduated from Northeastern last year with a degree in engineering, who'd called me crying last month because a male colleague had presented her design as his own in a team meeting, and her manager had told her to be more assertive instead of addressing the theft. "What did you do, Mom?" she'd asked. "I told you to document everything and escalate to HR," I'd said. But what had I actually done when the same thing happened to me? I'd smiled. I'd been patient. I'd convinced myself that good work would eventually be recognized, that playing by the rules would lead to fairness. I'd been a fool. At 5 p.m., I turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls, 27 text messages, 6 voicemails. I ignored all of them and called someone I should have called years ago. Samantha Reeveslaw. A crisp voice answered. "Sam, it's Diana Hartwell. Remember when you left Meridian's legal department and told me to call if I ever needed someone in my corner?" "Diana, of course. What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I think I need to file a discrimination complaint against my employer and possibly prepare for divorce." There was a pause. Then Sam's voice came back warmer, more personal. "Come to my office now. Let's talk about everything." Sam's office was in the financial district, a sleek space that spoke of success and no-nonsense efficiency. She cleared her afternoon schedule and listened while I laid out everything. The pattern of promotions going to younger, less experienced men. The documentation I had, because I'd been keeping it, even if I'd been too afraid to use it, showing my ideas being repackaged as Robert's. The emails where Gerald had promised me the VP position when the time was right. The salary discrepancies I'd discovered when I'd accidentally seen Robert's offer letter on Gerald's desk last week. He was being hired at $40,000 more than my current salary for a position I'd been told wasn't in the budget to create for me. Then I told her about Marcus, about his dismissiveness, his lack of support, his increasing resentment of my career success, about the separate credit card I'd found last month with charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, about the perfume smell on his jacket that wasn't my brand. Sam took notes, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Diana, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you're describing isn't just workplace unfairness. It's textbook gender discrimination with clear documentation. The pattern is unmistakable. And your husband's situation. She paused. Have you considered that these two situations might be connected? What do you mean? Men who feel threatened by their wives' success often sabotage them, consciously or unconsciously. The lack of support, the dismissiveness, the criticism of your ambition, these are classic patterns. And if he's having an affair, which the evidence suggests, the timing is suspicious. You're at a career peak. You outlearn him now, and suddenly he's checking out of the marriage. I'd thought about this in the quiet spaces between sleep and waking, but hearing someone else say it made it real. What do I do? Sam leaned forward. First, we document everything. You're going to go home tonight and make copies of any financial records you can access. Bank statements, credit card bills, tax returns, investment accounts. Then, we're going to file a formal EEOC complaint against Meridian. But here's where it gets interesting. We're going to do it strategically. How so? You're not going to quit. You're not going to make a scene. You're going to go back to work tomorrow, smile, and be the consummate professional while we build an airtight case. Let them think you've accepted the situation. Meanwhile, I'm going to start making some calls. Calls to whom? Sam smiled. I used to work at Meridian's legal department. Remember, I know where all the bodies are buried. I know which board members have been worried about the company's diversity metrics. I know which major clients have specific requirements about working with companies that demonstrate gender equity. And I happen to know that 3 of your biggest accounts have female CEOs who might be very interested to learn how Meridian treats its senior women. I felt something unfurl in my chest. Not quite hope, but something sharper. Possibility. And Marcus? We hire a private investigator. If he's having an affair, we get proof. Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity still matters for the optics, especially in financial negotiations. Plus, if we can prove he's spending marital assets on an affair, that's relevant. This feels so calculated, I said quietly. So cold. No, Sam corrected firmly. What's cold is a company stealing your work and giving the rewards to someone else. What's cold is a husband who resents your success and cheats while you're busy supporting his dreams. This isn't you being cold, Diana. This is you finally fighting back. I sat with that for a moment, then nodded. Okay, what's my first step? Go home. Act normal. Have dinner with your husband, and while he's asleep tonight, photograph every financial document you can find. Then, meet me here tomorrow at 7 a.m. before work. We'll start building your case. I drove home in the darkness, my mind spinning with plans and possibilities. The house was lit up when I arrived. Marcus's car in the driveway, music playing from the kitchen. I found him making pasta, a bottle of wine open on the counter. He turned when I entered, his face falling when he saw my expression. Di, what happened? I thought we were celebrating. Robert got the promotion, I said flatly. Marcus's face went through several expressions. Surprise, confusion, then something that looked almost like relief. Robert? Your assistant, Robert? Yes, but you were promised that position. You've been doing the work for over a year. Apparently, his fresh perspective was more valuable than my experience. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "Well, maybe this is a sign." "A sign of what?" "That it's time to think about other priorities. You've been working so hard for so long. Maybe this is the universe telling you it's okay to slow down. We're financially stable now. You could look for something less demanding. Spend more time on us." "Something less demanding," I repeated slowly. "You mean take a step backward in my career because Meridian chose to promote a less qualified man?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying, Marcus?" He set down the spoon he'd been using, his jaw tightening. "I'm saying that maybe you should consider whether constantly fighting for the next promotion is worth it. You're stressed all the time. You barely sleep. You've missed Lauren's last 3 visits home because of work projects. Maybe this is an opportunity to reassess your priorities." I stared at my husband of 24 years, at his expensive haircut, the one I'd paid for last month, at his designer watch, a birthday gift from me, at the kitchen renovation he'd insisted on, financed entirely by my income, while he paid off his student loans from the MBA I'd supported him through. "You're right," I said calmly. "I do need to reassess my priorities." His face brightened. "I'm glad you see it that way. We could even look into you going part-time." "I didn't mean my career," I interrupted. "I meant this marriage." The color drained from his face. "What?" "You heard me? Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to make some calls." I walked upstairs to our bedroom, locked the door, and began the meticulous process of photographing every financial document I could find. The next morning, I arrived at Sam's office at 6:45 a.m. with a thumb drive full of financial documents. She plugged it into her computer and began reviewing files while I drank coffee and tried to calm my racing heart. "Diana," she said after 20 minutes, her voice tight, "did you know Marcus has a separate investment account you're not listed on?" "What?" She turned the monitor toward me. There, in black and white, was an account statement for an investment portfolio worth $127,000. Money I'd never seen mentioned in our joint financial planning. "Where did this money come from?" I whispered. Sam clicked through more files. "According to these statements, it started 3 years ago with a $30,000 deposit, then regular monthly contributions of $2,000 to $3,000. The initial deposit was right after you got your last raise. My last raise. The one I'd gotten 3 years ago, which I told Marcus about excitedly, and he'd suggested we put away for the future. I'd assumed he meant into our joint retirement accounts. "He's been hiding money," I said flatly. "Not just hiding it. Look at these withdrawals." Sam pointed to several large transactions over the past 6 months. 5,000 here, 8,000 there. And look at the dates. They correspond with the credit card charges at expensive restaurants and hotels. He's been financing an affair with money he diverted from our marriage. That's exactly what this looks like. Diana, this is actually good for us. Terrible for you emotionally, but legally, this is ammunition. A judge will not look kindly on a spouse who hid marital assets and used them for an extramarital affair. I felt numb. How did I not see this? Because you trusted him, and because you've been working yourself to exhaustion, trying to prove your worth at a company that never intended to fairly reward you. You've been too busy fighting one battle to notice you were fighting two. Sam printed out several key documents and placed them in a folder. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm filing your EEOC complaint today. I'm also contacting a private investigator I work with to gather evidence of Marcus's affair. In the meantime, you're going to go to work and be absolutely professional. Don't tip your hand. Can you do that?" I thought about all the times I'd smiled and nodded, while less qualified men took credit for my work. All the times I'd bitten my tongue and played nice. "Yes," I said. "I've been practicing that performance for 14 years. Good. One more thing. I did some research last night. Robert Chen, his previous employer, was sued for age discrimination 3 years ago. He was named in the complaint as someone who'd been promoted over more qualified, older workers. The case settled quietly, but it's part of his history. Gerald hired him, knowing this. Gerald hired him because of this. Robert has a track record of being the fresh face companies use to justify passing over experienced workers. He's a professional replacement for people like you." Rage, hot and clarifying, flooded through me. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't bad luck. This was systematic. "Then let's systematically destroy them," I said quietly. Sam smiled. "Now you're thinking like a winner." I arrived at Meridian at 8:30 a.m., my usual time. The office had that peculiar energy of people who know something dramatic has happened and are waiting to see the fallout. Robert was in his new office, the one I'd been told would be mine once the promotion came through. He was rearranging furniture when I knocked on the open door. "Diana." He stood quickly, his expression nervous. "I wanted to talk to you." "Congratulations on your promotion," I said warmly, extending my hand. "I'm looking forward to working with you in this new capacity." He blinked, clearly thrown by my graciousness. Thank you. I know this must be awkward." "Not at all. You'll do great things in this role. I'd love to set up a transition meeting to go over the major projects and client relationships you'll be managing." "That would be incredibly helpful," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I have to admit, I'm a bit overwhelmed. There's so much institutional knowledge I need to learn." "Of course. Why don't we start with the Bergman account? I know you've been interested in that relationship." I smiled. "I have extensive documentation on how we landed and grew that account. It'll be helpful for you to understand the history." "Perfect. Should we schedule something for this afternoon?" "Actually, I think we should include Gerald and possibly legal, just to ensure a proper transfer of responsibilities. Let me check calendars and get back to you." I left his office and returned to my desk, where I found a stack of files that had been dropped off, Robert's priority projects, for me to brief him on. I began going through them methodically, making detailed notes. My colleague, Jennifer, appeared at my cubicle entrance. At 55, she was one of the few other women in senior leadership running the marketing department. "Your office," she said quietly. I followed her to her private office, and she closed the door. "What the hell happened yesterday?" she demanded. "You were promised that position. Plans changed. Diana, this is bullshit. Robert couldn't strategy his way out of a paper bag. Everyone knows you've been running operations for the past 2 years. Everyone knows, but it doesn't matter," I said calmly. "The decision's been made." Jennifer studied me carefully. "You're planning something." "I'm being professional." "No, I've known you for 8 years. You're too calm. When you're actually accepting something, you get quiet and withdrawn. Right now, you look like you're playing chess." I met her eyes. "If I were playing chess, would you want to be on my team or standing in my way?" Jennifer's expression shifted to something predatory. I've been passed over 3 times in the last decade for CMO. Each time, they brought in some hotshot from outside who knew nothing about our business. I'm 55 years old, Diana. I'm running out of time to make the moves I need to make. What if I told you I'm filing an EEOC complaint today? Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. And my lawyer is very good. She's building a pattern case, not just about me, but about Meridian's systematic discrimination against experienced workers, particularly women over 40. You're going nuclear. I'm going legal. There's a difference, but I'll need witnesses, people willing to document their own experiences. Jennifer sat down slowly. I have files, years of them. Performance reviews that praised my work while promoting men with worse metrics. Emails where I presented strategies that mysteriously became someone else's initiatives 6 months later. Salary data showing the gap between me and my male counterparts. Would you be willing to share those with my lawyer? Hell yes. Who else is in? Right now, just me. But I suspect if we start quietly asking around, we'll find others. Jennifer pulled out her phone. There's a woman in finance, Terry Blackburn. She's 51, been here 12 years. She was just passed over for CFO in favor of a 35-year-old from outside. She's been looking for new jobs. But what if she had a better option? What better option? Becoming a plaintiff in a class action lawsuit. I felt my pulse quicken. Sam didn't mention class action because she was probably thinking individual complaint. But Diana, if this is as systematic as we both know it is, why stop with just your case? Why not blow the whole thing open? I thought about Lauren, about her call last month, about all the young women entering workplaces that would systematically undervalue them for the next 30 years. Set up a meeting with Terry, I said. Somewhere off-site, tonight, after work. Jennifer grinned. Now we're talking. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and emails. I briefed Robert on 3 major accounts with meticulous detail, watching him take notes on processes he didn't fully understand. I smiled through a staff meeting where Gerald praised Robert's vision for changes that I had proposed 4 months ago. I had lunch with a client who asked me point blank why I wasn't the one getting promoted. Robert brings new energy to the role, I said diplomatically. I'm excited to support his success. The client, Margaret Chen, CEO of one of our largest accounts, raised an eyebrow. Diana, I've worked with Meridian for 6 years. You're the only reason we stayed after that disaster 3 years ago. If you're not being valued there, I hope you know there are companies that would appreciate your talents. I appreciate that, Margaret. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. I mean it. My company has a strict policy. We only work with vendors who demonstrate genuine commitment to diversity and inclusion. Not just lip service, but actual practices. If Meridian is passing over qualified women for less experienced men, that's something my board would want to know. I met her eyes. That's very good to know. At 6 p.m., I met Jennifer and Terry at a wine bar 3 blocks from the office. Terry was a sharp-featured woman with graying hair and tired eyes. Tell me I'm not crazy, she said, after Jennifer had explained the situation. Tell me it's not just in my head that I'm being systematically overlooked because I'm over 50. I pulled out my laptop and showed her the spreadsheet I'd been building for the past year. Every promotion, every hire, every salary that I'd been able to discreetly learn about. The pattern was damning. Men under 40, promoted every 2.3 years on average. Women over 45, promoted every 7.1 years, if at all. Salary gaps averaging $25,000 to $40,000 for equivalent positions. Jesus, Terry breathed. This is systematic. It's provable, I said. And my lawyer thinks we have grounds for a class action suit, especially if we can find more plaintiffs. How many would we need? Sam says 3 or 4 would be strong enough to establish a pattern. More would be better. Jennifer pulled out her phone. I can think of 6 women off the top of my head who've been screwed over in the past 5 years. Women who left the company bitter and angry. What if we reached out to them? Former employees can be powerful witnesses, I agreed. They don't have to worry about retaliation. Terry was quiet for a moment, staring at her wine glass. My daughter is 23. She just started her first real job. Last week, she called me crying because her manager took credit for her work in front of the whole team. You know what I told her? What? I told her to be patient, to focus on doing good work and trust that it would be recognized eventually. The same bullshit advice I've been following for 30 years. She looked up at me. I don't want to tell her that anymore. I want to tell her that when someone steals from you, you fight back. Then fight back with us, I said quietly. Terry extended her hand. I'm in. Over the next week, something remarkable happened. Women started coming forward. Jennifer and Terry quietly reached out to current and former employees, and the stories that emerged were heartbreaking in their consistency. Linda Morrison, 57, who'd been demoted to make room for a younger manager and had quit rather than report to someone she'd trained. Patricia Okonkwo, 49, who'd been told her communication style was too aggressive when she advocated for her team, while male managers with identical styles were praised as strong leaders. Yuki Tanaka, 52, who'd been passed over for a promotion with the explanation that clients might be more comfortable with someone who fit the traditional image of leadership. By Friday, we had 9 women willing to join the complaint. Sam was ecstatic. This isn't just a case anymore, she told me in a conference call with all the plaintiffs. This is going to be a watershed moment. Meridian is a major player in this industry. When this goes public, every company is going to have to examine their own practices. When does it go public? Linda asked. We file Monday morning. I've already drafted the complaint, and I've been having conversations with some journalists I trust. This is going to be big news. What about retaliation? Patricia asked nervously. Some of us still work there. Massachusetts has strong whistleblower protections, Sam explained. Any retaliation, demotion, firing, hostile work environment becomes additional damages. They'll be under intense scrutiny. That said, it won't be easy. You all need to be prepared for pushback. I thought about what was coming. The publicity, the judgment, the inevitable attempts to paint us as bitter, difficult women who couldn't accept merit-based decisions. I'm prepared, I said. I've spent 14 years being professional while being undervalued. I think I can handle some honesty. The others murmured agreement. That evening, I came home to find Marcus in the living room, his face grave. We need to talk, he said. About? I got a call today from a private investigator. He said you'd hired him to follow me. I felt a chill run through me. The investigator had been explicitly instructed to be discreet. What investigator? Don't play dumb, Diana. I know you're having me followed. I sat down across from him. Why would I have you followed? I don't know. You tell me. Are you really that paranoid about where I spend my time? Should I be? Something flickered across his face. Guilt, anger, fear. This is crazy. I'm your husband. We've been married for 24 years. And you're treating me like a criminal. Where were you last Tuesday evening? Working late. Until 11 p.m.? Yes. We're in the middle of a big project. Which restaurant did you have that project meeting at? Because your credit card shows a $347 charge at Mistral. That's a romantic bistro, Marcus. Not exactly a business meeting venue. The color drained from his face. You're monitoring my credit cards. Our credit cards. And apparently, I should have been monitoring them more closely. He stood abruptly. I'm not having this conversation. You're acting paranoid and controlling. And honestly, it's one of the reasons our marriage has been struggling. Our marriage has been struggling? Yes. You're never home. You're obsessed with work. You don't make time for us anymore. And now you're hiring investigators and tracking my spending. This is insane. I stood up slowly. You're right. We should probably take some space. I think you should stay somewhere else for a while. You're kicking me out? I'm suggesting a separation while we both figure out what we want. Diana, you're being irrational. Get out, Marcus, tonight, and take whatever you need for a few weeks, because you won't be coming back until we've had some legal conversations. His face cycled through several emotions before landing on cold anger. Fine, but you're going to regret this. You're destroying our family because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. I said, get out. He left an hour later with 2 suitcases, slamming the door behind him. I stood in the silent house, shaking with adrenaline and something else. Relief. My phone rang. Sam. Diana, we have a problem. Someone leaked that we're filing Monday. Meridian's lawyers are already scrambling. Gerald's office has been calling me all afternoon, trying to negotiate. Negotiate what? He wants a meeting before we file. He's promising to make things right, offering settlements. Tell him no. Are you sure? They might offer you significant money. I don't want their money, Sam. I want their practices exposed. I want every woman who comes after me to benefit from this. So no meetings, no quiet settlements. We file Monday, and we do it loudly. There was a pause. Then Sam said, You're my favorite kind of client. What kind is that? The kind who's done being silent. Monday morning, I arrived at Meridian at 7:30 a.m. The building felt different somehow, or perhaps I felt different. I was no longer trying to prove my worth to people who would never acknowledge it. I was here to document, to observe, and to wait for the inevitable explosion. Sam had filed the complaint at 8 a.m. sharp. By 8:15, my phone started buzzing with messages from colleagues who'd seen the news alerts. Boston Globe, major Boston firm, Faces class, action discrimination suit, 9 women allege systematic age and gender bias. Industry Times, Meridian Solutions accused of pattern of promoting young men over qualified women. Herald, Business, class action lawsuit, claims Boston tech company created boys club culture. I was at my desk, calmly responding to emails, when Gerald's assistant appeared. Her face flushed. Mr. Whitmore needs to see you immediately. Conference room A. I'll be there in 5 minutes, I said pleasantly. Let me finish this client email. She looked shocked that I wasn't dropping everything, but I took my time, finished the email, gathered my portfolio, checked my appearance in my compact mirror. Then I walked to conference room A with measured, confident steps. Inside, I found Gerald, Robert, the head of HR, Sandra Kemp, and two people I didn't recognize, but whose expensive suits screamed, "Corporate lawyers." "Diana, sit down," Gerald said, his voice tight. "We need to discuss this situation." "What situation?" I asked, taking a seat and placing my portfolio on the table. "Don't play games," one of the lawyers said. "You know exactly what situation. You've filed a lawsuit against this company, making outrageous, unsubstantiated claims. Actually, they're very substantiated," I interrupted calmly. "I have 14 years of documentation, performance reviews, project records, email chains, salary data. Would you like to see?" I opened my portfolio and pulled out a thick binder. "This is just my personal documentation. I believe the other 8 plaintiffs have similarly thorough records." Sandra leaned forward. "Diana, I don't understand why you didn't come to HR with these concerns before taking legal action." "I did come to HR," I said, pulling out another document. 3 years ago, when I was passed over for the director promotion in favor of James Sullivan. Here's the email I sent you, outlining my qualifications versus his. Your response, and I quote, was, "Leadership decisions are based on many factors beyond just qualifications." I slid the printed email across the table. And then, 18 months ago, when the vice president position was first discussed, I scheduled a meeting with you to ask about the promotion timeline. You told me I needed to be patient and not appear too aggressive about career advancement. I pulled out another document. Here are my notes from that meeting, which I sent you via email to confirm our discussion. You never corrected any of my characterization of our conversation. Sandra's face had gone pale. "So you see," I continued, "I did follow proper channels. Repeatedly, I was ignored, dismissed, and told to wait my turn. Meanwhile, 5 men with less experience were promoted over me in the past 7 years." Gerald cleared his throat. "Diana, I understand you're upset about the Robert situation." "The Robert situation," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling textbook discrimination now?" "Robert was the best candidate." "Based on what metrics?" I pulled out another document. "Here's my performance data for the past 3 years, compared to Robert's. My client retention rate, 94%, his, 78%. My project completion rate, 97% on time and under budget, his, 81%. My revenue generation, $12.3 million annually, his, $3.1 million. I slid the comparison across the table. Robert was promoted because he's young, male, and willing to take credit for other people's work. Specifically, my work. Would you like to see the detailed breakdown of which innovative ideas he presented in his promotion interview that I developed and presented in strategy meetings over the past 14 months? The lawyers exchanged glances. One of them spoke up. "Ms. Hartwell, Meridian is prepared to offer you a substantial settlement if you'll withdraw your complaint and sign an NDA. No, you haven't heard our offer. I don't need to hear it. I'm not interested in being paid to stay quiet about discrimination. I'm interested in changing the system that allowed it to happen. That's very idealistic," the lawyer said, with barely concealed condescension, "but unrealistic. These cases are expensive, time-consuming, and rarely result in the outcomes plaintiffs hope for." "Then I guess we'll see," I said, standing up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. Robert, I've prepared briefing documents on the Steinberg account transition. They're on your desk. I walked out of the conference room, my heart pounding, but my steps steady. Back at my desk, I found Jennifer waiting. That was fast. What happened? They offered money to go away quietly. And? I told them no. Jennifer grinned. God, I wish I'd been in that room. The look on Gerald's face must have been priceless. Pretty satisfying, I admitted. How are things in your department? Tense. Everyone's walking on eggshells. But 3 women from marketing have asked me privately if it's too late to join the lawsuit. Apparently, seeing it actually filed made them realize they have their own stories. Tell them to contact Sam directly. The more documentation we have of the pattern, the stronger our case. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Mom, I just saw the news. Are you okay? This is huge. I texted back. I'm fine, honey. Better than fine, actually. Finally standing up for myself. Her response came immediately. I'm so proud of you. You're a badass. I smiled. Whatever else happened, at least my daughter would see that sometimes you have to fight for what's right. The rest of Monday was surreal. Colleagues avoided eye contact in the hallways. Some offered quiet words of support. Others clearly saw me as a troublemaker who disrupted their comfortable world. At 3:00 p.m., I received an email from Margaret Chen, the CEO of our major client. Diana, I've been following the news about Meridian. My board and I are very concerned about these allegations. As you know, our company policy requires us to work with vendors who demonstrate genuine commitment to diversity and equity. We're going to need to schedule a call with Meridian's leadership to discuss these issues. I'd like you to be on that call as well. Your perspective as the account manager who's worked with us for 6 years is invaluable. I forwarded the email to Sam with a note. One of our largest clients is getting involved. This is going to hurt Meridian's bottom line. Sam's response? Perfect. Nothing motivates corporate change like the threat of lost revenue. By the way, 3 reporters want to interview you. Are you willing? I thought about it. Going public meant opening myself up to scrutiny, to attacks on my character, to having every decision I'd ever made questioned. But it also meant telling the truth. Yes, I texted back. I'm willing. That evening, I did my first interview with Boston Globe reporter Sarah Mitchell. We met at a coffee shop far from Meridian's office. Walk me through your 14 years at Meridian, Sarah said, recorder running. When did you first notice the pattern? I thought back. Probably around year 5. I'd been promoted to senior project manager, and I was excited because I thought I was on the leadership track. Then James Sullivan was hired from outside for a director position I'd been told I was being groomed for. When I asked why, I was told James had executive presence. What did that mean? I didn't know then. I thought maybe I needed to be more assertive in meetings, speak up more, demonstrate leadership. So I did all those things. And you know what happened? What? I got feedback that I was too aggressive, not a team player, too focused on my own advancement. The traits that were praised as leadership in men were criticized as problematic in me. Sarah nodded, taking notes. And this pattern continued? For 9 more years. Every time a leadership position opened up, I was passed over, sometimes for external candidates, sometimes for internal men with less experience. The explanations varied. but the result was always the same. And meanwhile, I was doing the work of these positions without the title or the compensation. The complaint mentions that Robert Chen was promoted to a role you'd effectively been performing for 18 months. That's correct. I was told the VP position would be mine once I proved I was ready. So I ran operations, rebuilt our supply chain systems, managed our largest accounts, and mentored junior staff. Then they gave the position to my 29-year-old assistant and told me to train him. How did that feel? I paused, choosing my words carefully. Like being told that 14 years of excellent work, of loyalty, of going above and beyond meant nothing. Like my value expired the moment I turned 50. Like no matter how good I was, I'd never be seen as good as a younger man. Sarah's expression was sympathetic. The lawsuit also mentions 8 other women with similar experiences. Yes, and since we filed, more have come forward. This isn't about one bad promotion decision. This is about a systematic pattern of valuing youth and maleness over experience and competence. Meridian's lawyers released a statement saying these allegations are completely unfounded and that all promotion decisions were based on merit and qualifications. Then they should have no problem releasing the data. Promotion rates by gender and age, salary comparisons for equivalent positions, performance review scores versus promotion outcomes. If merit is really the deciding factor, the numbers will show it. Sarah smiled slightly. You've thought about this. I've had 14 years to think about it. I just finally decided to do something about it. The interview ran in Tuesday's paper, front page of the business section. By noon, it had been picked up by national outlets. My phone exploded with messages, some supportive, some hostile. One text stood out from a number I didn't recognize. You're a bitter, menopausal bitch who can't accept that younger, better workers are passing you by. You're embarrassing yourself. I showed it to Sam during our afternoon call. Should I be worried about this kind of harassment? Document everything, but don't engage. This is par for the course, unfortunately. Women who speak up about discrimination always get attacked. It means you're being effective. That's a depressing reality. It is. But you know what else is reality? 3 more major Meridian clients have reached out to me asking about the allegations. Your Margaret Chen started a domino effect. These companies are worried about being associated with a firm that might be systematically discriminating. Good, I said. Let them worry. Wednesday brought a new development. Marcus's lawyer contacted Sam requesting an emergency meeting about our marital assets. He knows about the hidden investment account, Sam told me. He's trying to get ahead of it by claiming he was saving money for our future, and you're being unreasonable. What about the affair? Our investigator got photos. Marcus has been seeing someone named Ashley Brennan. She's 34, works at his firm, and according to her social media, which is unfortunately very public, they've been together for at least 8 months. There are restaurant check-ins, photos from weekend trips, the works. My stomach turned, even though I'd known this was coming. 8 months, while he was telling me I needed to refocus on our marriage. Yes, and while he was diverting marital assets to fund the relationship. Diana, in the meeting, his lawyer is going to try to paint you as a workaholic who neglected the marriage. You need to be prepared for that. I am prepared. I have emails where I invited him to company events, and he declined. texts where I suggested date nights, and he was too busy. Calendar invites for Lauren's college events that he skipped. I've been documenting our marriage the same way I documented my career. Good, because this is going to get ugly. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon. I spent the intervening days focused on work, or rather, on documenting every aspect of my work. Sam had advised that Meridian might try to build a case that my performance had been declining, that Robert's promotion was justified by recent poor results. They were going to be disappointed. I pulled reports on every project I'd managed in the past 3 years, client satisfaction scores, revenue growth, cost savings from process improvements I'd implemented. By the time I was done, I had a 147-page document that made it crystal clear I wasn't just competent, I was exceptional. On Thursday, Gerald called me into his office. Just him this time, no lawyers. "Deanna, sit down. I want to talk off the record." "There is no off the record anymore," I said. "Anything you say to me should be said with the assumption I'll share it with my lawyer." He sighed heavily. "This lawsuit is destroying morale. People are scared. Productivity is down, and we're starting to lose clients. Is that really what you want?" "What I want is for Meridian to stop discriminating against experienced women. If that damages morale among people who benefited from that discrimination, I'm not particularly concerned. You used to be a team player." I used to think being a team player meant the team would value my contributions. I was wrong. Gerald leaned back in his chair. "What will it take to make this go away? And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about real change. What do you actually want?" I considered him carefully. "You're asking because the board is panicking. The board is very concerned. Yes. 3 major clients have suspended their contracts pending investigation into these allegations. Our reputation is being damaged. Our stock price has dropped 4% since Monday. This is affecting people's livelihoods." "You mean it's affecting profits?" "That, too. So tell me, what would satisfy you?" I pulled out my phone and opened a document I'd been drafting. Independent audit of all hiring and promotion decisions from the past 10 years, with results made public. Mandatory bias training for all leadership. Creation of a transparency policy for promotions. Candidates must be informed of their ranking and why they weren't selected if they're passed over. Salary equity study with a commitment to close any unjustified gaps within 12 months. And a zero-tolerance policy for retaliation against anyone who's participated in this lawsuit. Gerald stared at me. "That's extensive. That's accountability. And one more thing. I want Robert Chen's promotion reversed. Not because I want his job, but because he didn't earn it. Give him a position appropriate to his actual experience and qualifications. We can't just demote him. You can, if the promotion was based on discrimination rather than merit, which it was. Diana, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm offering Meridian a chance to fix its practices before this gets worse, because it will get worse. Gerald, we have 9 plaintiffs now, with more considering joining. We have documentation going back a decade. We have clients threatening to leave. You can either fix the problem or watch it destroy the company." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'll talk to the board." "You do that. But understand something. This isn't negotiable. Either Meridian commits to real change, or we proceed with a full lawsuit, and I'll spend every interview I do explaining exactly how this company systematically destroyed women's careers. I stood up and walked out, my heart racing, but my resolve steady. Friday's meeting with Marcus and his lawyer was held in a conference room at Sam's office. Marcus arrived, looking haggard, dark circles under his eyes. His lawyer, a sharp-featured man named Douglas Reed, immediately took control. My client is willing to be generous in the division of assets, despite Mrs. Hartwell's recent erratic behavior. Erratic, I interrupted. That's an interesting word choice. Hiring investigators to follow your husband, making wild accusations, forcing separation. I didn't force anything. I asked Marcus to stay elsewhere while I processed the discovery that he's been having an affair and hiding marital assets, neither of which are wild accusations, since we have documentation of both. Sam laid out a series of photographs on the table. Marcus with Ashley at restaurants. Marcus and Ashley entering a hotel together. Marcus and Ashley on what appeared to be a weekend trip to the Cape. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. Douglas cleared his throat. My client admits he's been seeing Ms. Brennan, but characterizes it as a symptom of the marriage's deterioration, rather than a cause. How convenient, I said. And the $127,000 in hidden investment accounts? That money was set aside for marital purposes. Then why wasn't I informed about it? Why was I not listed on the account? And why were withdrawals used to finance romantic dinners and hotel rooms with his mistress? Douglas shifted uncomfortably. My client made some poor decisions, but that doesn't justify Mrs. Hartwell's current aggressive stance. We're proposing a 50-50 division of all known marital assets, except the hidden account, which Marcus keeps. Sam interjected. That's not how this works. The hidden account represents money Marcus saved from his income, money he diverted from the marital estate, while his wife paid for their living expenses, money he hid deliberately to fund an affair. A judge is going to take a very dim view of that. I watched Marcus squirm. After 24 years of marriage, I'd expected to feel something. Anger, sadness, betrayal. Instead, I felt nothing. This man had stopped being my partner long ago. I'd just been too busy trying to save my career to notice. Here's my counter-proposal, Sam said. Sliding a document across the table, Diana keeps the house, which she has significantly more equity in given her income. Marcus gets his 401k, but the hidden investment account is split 70-30 in Diana's favor as a penalty for hiding marital assets. All joint accounts are split equally. Diana keeps her retirement accounts intact, and Marcus pays her attorney fees. That's absurd, Douglas started. That's generous, Sam interrupted, because the alternative is we go to court, where Diana will present evidence of infidelity, financial fraud, and emotional abandonment. Massachusetts judges don't look kindly on spouses who hide assets and commit adultery. Marcus will be lucky to keep 40% of anything. Marcus finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Diana, please, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers tearing apart 24 years of marriage. You already tore it apart, I said quietly. You just expected me not to notice. I made mistakes. You had an affair. You hid money. You undermined my career at every turn. Those aren't mistakes, Marcus. Those are choices. And now you get to live with the consequences. His face hardened. Fine. You want to be vindictive? Go ahead. But don't expect me to make this easy. I don't expect anything from you anymore, I replied. That's actually quite liberating. The meeting ended with no resolution. But Sam was confident. He's going to settle. Once Douglas explains the reality of what a judge will do, Marcus will realize fighting is only going to cost him more. That evening, I sat in my house, legally mine, long before the marriage ended, and took stock of my life. My career was in chaos. My marriage was over. My parents, who I'd barely spoken to since the lawsuit became public, kept leaving voicemails asking me to reconsider this destructive path. But I also had something I hadn't had in years: clarity. I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not documentation this time, but something else. A blog post about what it means to be a woman over 50 in corporate America, about the invisible ways we're told our value has expired, about the choice between accepting diminishment or fighting back. I titled it "The Expiration Date They Gave Me" and published it on Medium. By morning, it had 50,000 views. By afternoon, 200,000. The comments poured in, thousands of women sharing their own stories of being passed over, pushed out, told they were too old, too aggressive, too much. I'm 48 and was just told I'm not relatable enough to younger clients. Meanwhile, my 52-year-old male colleague is considered distinguished. I trained my replacement. He was 26. He now makes $40,000 more than I did. They told me my career trajectory had plateaued. I'd been there 15 years with stellar reviews. 2 months later, they hired a 32-year-old man for the position I'd been aiming for. Reading these stories, I realized something. This wasn't just about me and Meridian. This was about an entire generation of women who'd been promised that if they worked hard, played by the rules, improved their worth, they'd be rewarded. Instead, we'd been systematically discarded the moment we were no longer young enough to be non-threatening. My phone rang. A producer from a national morning show wanted to interview me about the lawsuit in the blog post. Then NPR called. Then the Wall Street Journal. Sam called that evening. "Diana, you've become a symbol. This is bigger than the Meridian case now. Are you ready for that?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm not backing down." "Good, because Meridian's board called me this afternoon. They want to negotiate a settlement for the class action. Not just for you, for all the plaintiffs. And they're willing to discuss systematic changes." "What kind of changes?" "The ones you outlined to Gerald, plus more. They're scared, Diana. Between the client defections and the publicity, they're looking at serious financial damage. Your blog post made this personal for millions of women. Meridian is now a case study in what not to do. What about Robert's promotion? They're willing to restructure it as a lateral move to a different department with a new title, not the VP role. They'll reopen the VP search and commit to considering internal candidates fairly. Will I be considered? Do you want to be? Or do you want something else?" I thought about that. Did I want to stay at Meridian, even if they changed their practices? Did I want to continue fighting for recognition from people who'd never truly valued me? "I want the other 8 women taken care of," I said. "I want real, systematic change. And I want Meridian to fund a scholarship program for women over 40, pursuing advanced degrees or career changes. $1 million endowment. That's a big ask. They can afford it, and it shows they're serious about change, not just trying to make a lawsuit go away." "What about you personally? What do you want for yourself?" I looked around my house, thought about my career, my marriage, the life I'd been living. I want out, I said. A clean exit, a strong severance, and my reputation intact. I don't want to work for people who see me as a problem they need to solve. I want to work for myself. Doing what? I smiled. I have some ideas. The settlement took 3 weeks to negotiate. In the end, Meridian agreed to independent audit of all hiring and promotion practices, mandatory bias training for all leadership, transparent promotion criteria and feedback, salary equity study with commitment to close gaps, $1.2 million scholarship fund for women over 40, settlements for all 9 plaintiffs. My amount was confidential, but substantial. Strong non-retaliation protections. Robert Chen quietly left the company 2 weeks after the settlement was announced. I heard through the grapevine that several clients had refused to work with him once they learned about his history. Marcus settled the divorce on terms very close to what Sam had proposed. He kept his 401k and 30% of the hidden account. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and 70% of the hidden money he'd tried to steal from our marriage. The divorce was finalized in early December. 6 months after that confrontation in the conference room, I stood in front of a room full of women at a conference on women in leadership. They gave me an expiration date, I told the audience. They decided that at 52, I was no longer valuable, that my 14 years of expertise mattered less than a 29-year-old's fresh perspective. And for a long time, I believed them. I questioned myself. I worked harder, hoping to prove I was still worthy of the opportunities I'd earned. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces, women of all ages, all fighting similar battles. But here's what I learned. We don't have expiration dates. Our value doesn't diminish with age. It increases. Every year of experience, every challenge overcome, every skill mastered makes us more valuable, not less. The problem isn't us. The problem is a system designed to discard us before we become too powerful. Applause rippled through the room. So here's my advice. Document everything. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Build alliances with other women. We're stronger together than they want us to realize. And most importantly, know your worth. Don't wait for someone else to recognize it. Act on it. After the speech, dozens of women approached me with their stories, their questions, their gratitude. Among them was a young woman, maybe 25, who reminded me of Lauren. My manager just took credit for my project, she said. I'm afraid if I say anything, I'll be labeled a troublemaker. What should I do? I thought about my 14 years of staying quiet, of playing nice, of hoping fairness would eventually prevail. Say something, I told her. Document it and report it. Don't spend the next 30 years regretting your silence. She nodded, determination in her eyes. That evening, I returned to my home office, the space where I'd built my new consulting firm, Hartwell Strategies. I specialized in helping companies audit their promotion and hiring practices, identifying and eliminating bias. Business was thriving. Apparently, after the Meridian lawsuit, a lot of companies wanted to make sure they weren't next. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Mom, I just got promoted to senior engineer. I used your advice about documenting my work and advocating for myself. Thank you for showing me how to fight back. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. This was why it had all been worth it. Another message came in from Jennifer, 4th company this month, requesting our services. We're going to need to hire another consultant. Are you ready to scale up? After the settlement, Jennifer had left Meridian and joined my firm. So had Terry. We were building something new, a company that valued experience, that saw women over 50 as assets rather than liabilities. Let's do it, I texted back. I walked to my window, looking out at the Boston skyline, lit up in the evening darkness. Somewhere out there, Gerald was dealing with the fallout of systematic discrimination being exposed. Robert was trying to rebuild a career without stolen ideas to present as his own. Marcus was living in a small apartment with Ashley, discovering that relationships built on betrayal rarely last. And I was here, free, successful, finally living on my own terms. They'd tried to give me an expiration date. Instead, I'd given myself a new beginning. My laptop chimed with an email notification. Another speaking request, this time for a keynote at a national conference on workplace equity. The fee they were offering was more than my monthly salary at Meridian. I accepted the invitation and started drafting my speech. There was still so much work to do. So many women still fighting battles I'd fought. So many companies still operating under the assumption that experience in women was a liability, while experience in men was seasoned leadership. But for the first time in years, I felt hopeful, not because the system had changed overnight. It hadn't, but because women were no longer willing to stay silent about it. Because every lawsuit, every blog post, every woman who refused to accept diminishment was creating cracks in the foundation of institutional bias. And through those cracks, light was starting to come through. I pulled up the document I'd been working on, a book manuscript titled The Expiration Date Myth: Reclaiming Your Value in Corporate America. It was part memoir, part manifesto, part practical guide for women navigating workplace discrimination. Publishers were already interested. My agent said we'd likely have offers within weeks. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, sitting in that conference room, watching Robert accept my promotion, swallowing my rage and disappointment because I'd been trained to be gracious in defeat. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who learned that the system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed, to benefit some at the expense of others. And the only way to change it was to refuse to play by rules that were rigged against you. My phone rang. Sam. Diana, you're not going to believe this. Meridian just announced that Jennifer's replacement as CMO is a 53-year-old woman promoted from within, and the new VP of Operations, Patricia Okonkwo, one of our plaintiffs. I felt a surge of satisfaction. They're actually changing. They're terrified not to. Between the publicity and the client pressure, they can't afford to be caught discriminating again. You created accountability. We created accountability, I corrected. None of this would have happened if it was just me. It took all of us speaking up together. True, but you were the catalyst. You were the one willing to risk everything to fight back. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, thinking about risk. I'd risked my career, my marriage, my reputation, and I'd lost some of those things. But I'd gained so much more: self-respect, purpose, a career built on my own terms, relationships based on genuine respect rather than convenience, and the knowledge that I'd made a difference, not just for myself, but for every woman who came after me. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find Lauren standing there with takeout bags and a bottle of wine. Surprise! I thought we could celebrate my promotion together. I pulled her into a hug. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Mom. You taught me that staying silent is the same as accepting injustice. That lesson is worth more than any inheritance. We sat in the living room, eating Thai food and talking about her work, her plans, her dreams. At 24, she was already negotiating better than I had at 34, already setting boundaries I'd never established, already knowing her worth in ways it had taken me decades to learn. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "The lawsuit? Everything that came after?" I considered the question. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the years I wasted hoping fairness would eventually prevail. But the lawsuit itself? No. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and the most important. What about Dad? Do you regret the marriage? I regret how it ended, but not that it ended. Your father and I wanted different things, and I was trying so hard to make everyone else happy that I forgot to consider whether I was happy. The divorce forced me to confront that. He's miserable, you know. Ashley left him 3 months ago. She apparently found someone with better financial prospects. I felt no satisfaction in that news, just a sort of distant pity. Your father needs to figure out what he actually wants from life, instead of resenting other people for having clarity about their own goals. Very diplomatic, Mom. I'm past the anger phase. Now I'm just neutral. He's your father, and I hope he finds whatever he's looking for. But his happiness is no longer my responsibility. Lauren raised her wine glass. To women who know their worth and aren't afraid to demand it. I clinked my glass against hers. To the next generation doing it better than we did. Later that night, after Lauren had left, I stood on my back deck looking at the stars. It was a clear October night, almost exactly a year since that conference room announcement that had changed everything. A year ago, I'd watched my assistant get my promotion. Tonight, I owned my own successful firm, had a book deal, and was rebuilding my life on my own terms. They'd tried to tell me my best years were behind me, that at 52, I was past my prime, no longer valuable enough to invest in. They'd been catastrophically wrong. My best years weren't behind me. They were just beginning, because I'd finally stopped seeking validation from people who would never give it and started building something that mattered to me. I thought about all the women I'd spoken with over the past year, the ones who'd shared their stories of discrimination and diminishment, the ones who'd found courage in my lawsuit to speak up about their own experiences, the ones who'd left toxic workplaces to start their own ventures. We were creating something new, a generation of women who refused to accept expiration dates, who leveraged their experience instead of apologizing for it, who built power structures that valued competence over compliance. It wasn't a revolution that would happen overnight, but it was happening, and I was proud to be part of it. My phone buzzed with a final message for the night. From Sam. 3 more companies requesting proposals for equity audits. Also, Gerald called me. Meridian wants to hire you as an external consultant to help implement the changes from the settlement. The irony is not lost on me. Interested? I smiled at the sheer audacity of it. The company that had systematically discriminated against me now wanted to pay me at consultant rates that were triple what they'd paid me as an employee to fix their discriminatory practices. Send me the details. I texted back. Let's talk about terms. Because that was the thing about knowing your worth. You stopped accepting less than you deserved. You started demanding what was fair. And when people who'd undervalued you finally recognized their mistake, you made sure they paid appropriately for the lesson. I went inside, locked the door, and headed to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to build the world I wanted to see. But tonight, I slept peacefully for the first time in years because I was no longer fighting to prove my worth to people who'd never acknowledge it. I already knew my worth, and that knowledge was freedom.